I've asked Pastor Joe to lead us in prayer as we begin this gathering. So, Joe, if you would.
Yeah, thank you for volunteering me, Vid, to do this. Raranim, Avivadesin, greetings to you all, COFA family. We recognize the Jubun and Letivata, the sorrow and the pain that of those whose lives are affected by death of loved ones due to COVID-19. I feel almost out of place to be talking about COVID-19 when this week COVID-19 has hit close to home, family members in other states whose lives are taken by COVID-19. As you can imagine, it's a bit hard to be talking about COVID-19 at this moment. But as a word of prayer, I kindly ask all of us to take a moment of silence to pay homage first to our Neo or our ancestors, and we respect the indigenous peoples of every land that we are on. And as a word of prayer, let us grieve with those who are grieving, to uplift them in our hearts, to allow our Creator to hear the cries of loss and to see the tears of love. Shall we bow our heads? And in our Creator's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Okay, thank you so much, Joe, Pastor Joe, Consul General. You wear many hats, so thank you for sharing all your talents. I'm not sure what happened to our... Okay, so just a few words again before we begin. This meeting is being recorded, so we can share it out later on our website. If you can, I know that I've unmuted everybody, but if you can, I'll probably mute everyone again. But soon I'll unmute everyone, and everyone will just kind of take responsibility for muting yourself when you're not speaking and unmuting yourself when not speaking. That would be great. When you're speaking, it would be great if you can just introduce yourself, your name, perhaps where you're residing now, and the name of an organization, or of your organization if you're representing or you're a member of a specific organization, just so that we can have some context of conversation. This is really meant for conversation, so I won't go any further. These are just some prompts of how we want to begin. As you know, we didn't get a chance to have this discussion last week after the presentations. So essentially these questions here, just as prompts because we want to build the agenda for the day. So maybe at this time, we just want to take some time for everyone to maybe share out what they think we ought to be focusing on, maybe a topic. If there's some concerns in your community or organizations, some concerns that you're dealing with these days, any successful actions that you've done or you're doing in terms of providing the support for our COFA community around the US. Perhaps some collective actions that you think we ought to be focusing our discussion on. So let me pause there and just invite anyone to add to that agenda if there are any. And I want to thank Dr. Natalie Nimmer for sharing, for taking notes for us today. So she's taking notes on these, and then every now and again I may ask her to just remind us of what folks are sharing, or at least in terms of the agenda for today. So I'll pause there and leave it open for any comments or questions or anything that might be related to our agenda for today.
Well, let me figure out how to unmute myself first. Did I unmute myself successfully?
Yes, yes, Mike, we can hear you loud and clear. Go for it.
This is Mike Pangilinan. I'm here in Arizona. Two organizations, I guess, COFA, Community Leadership and Advocacy Network, and also the newly forming CAN Arizona. So we are so new to this, and in Arizona, I don't know if it's more of a national thing, but information seems to be pretty hard to get here. Arizona's been pretty far behind in testing, I think, when you compare to the national, all the other states and everything. And last week, there was a lot of numbers thrown out, a lot of data and statistics, and I'm just wondering, you know, again, us being new here and still trying to figure out how to get going on this. You know, I heard about the task forces that were put together last week. We want to do that because we just feel, at least I feel like in Arizona, you know, you ask around and you get a lot of, oh, everything's fine. Okay, well, that's good. That's great if that's true, but we don't really know that. And we won't know that until we can get out there and get information and get numbers. So any guidance on like where to go? I know our Department of Health and everything, but how do we get our foot in the door if anybody kind of has that kind of information and help us out? I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Any other thoughts on what might be on our agenda for the hour and a half that we have together?
Good, may I speak?
Yes, please, Cici.
Thank you. Yahweh Alet.
Yahweh.
I'm actually residing in Washington State, and today I'm representing the Marshallese Women's Association. One update is we were able to sign a contract with the King County Public Health as of Friday, and we are now IPA certified to start tracking COVID confirmed cases and other related COFA matters, especially for the Marshallese people here. Our goal also is to be the voice, not only for the Marshallese people, but also for our COFA families from FSM and Palau. So we did ask the director of the pandemic task here if we hear of any concerns, is to give it to him so he can then relate it to his other departments in the state of Washington. So that was our goal, to get to King County Public Health so they can then spread it to the upper management of the COVID state of Washington. And one of my main concern, and I already conveyed to David, is not only about getting those data for the confirmed cases and medical information. My main concern is unemployment for our COFA people, because it's really hard for them to get it, especially with lack of documentation. And Fit, I also sent you a text, I think yesterday, asking if this task force can create subgroups where one is concentrated to just Chuukese, because it seems like we Marshallese were okay in having that subgroup already. But if, like, who do I report if I hear anything, especially with like the Chuukese families? And then, yeah, that is all from my end. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sissy. Great. We're still just kind of answering any of these questions to set the agenda for the day, or really to lead the discussion forward as well.
Can I say something? This is John.
Yes, sir, John, go ahead.
Yeah. Yagualep.
Well,
That's the only language I remember. It's good to see familiar faces, old friends. John Acapito from the Mexican-San Diego border. It's good to be here. Congratulations to all those been working hard to put these together. Just two things, I think, or Vid. One, with regards to the agenda, maybe related to number 4. I've been wondering about the feasibility of a one-stop shop where there's just so many resources and places where we can get information. But I don't know if it would be feasible to set up some kind of a centralized space where people can go and check out all the all the different links and information. Folks from Milan, Minnesota, or somewhere in Oklahoma, or they just need to go somewhere to get started with information. I think that might be helpful and something that we can maybe address or include in the agenda items.
okay.
At least for the short term, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, John. Maybe a couple of more thoughts on perhaps some agenda items for today. It might be important for us to discuss.
Hey, Vit, may I say something, please?
Yes, sir, Mr. Alec.
Yeah, thank you, Vit. Since this is my first time to say something in this, I just want to first thank God for this opportunity to come and meet with all of you. And I want to thank you, Vit, and the members of this group for organizing this. I feel that it's very important that we come together as Micronesians, us that are living in the States. I know we are all facing the same challenges. So it's very important that we come together and share ideas, share what we do in our communities. This is Eldon Alec, by the way. I'm the Consul General for the Marshall Islands. My office is here in Springdale, Arkansas. We have the largest population of Marshallese in the States. We are thinking maybe between 10 and 20,000 Marshallese here. And we are right in the middle of this pandemic. There's been two deaths in our community, 2 Marshallese, and about 30 some that are affected now. We have some good news. We have, I think, 20 people that have recovered. Dr. Rickland is here, so he could correct me. But one of the things that I think we ought to talk about is how do we, as community, how do we find ways to partner with the communities that we live in, with the local governments, and because I think that this is the only way that we can get assistance and get people to help us. And one thing that we have done here is that, we're fortunate to have nonprofits, and that's what I tell all the other Marshallese communities that try to establish nonprofits for yourself, because this is where all the fundings and all the assistance will funnel through. So I want to address Cece's concern about unemployment. This is something that my office has been trying to battle. And here in Arkansas, they've told us to apply as citizens, as U.S. citizens, mark U.S. citizens online when you fill out the forms. not to fill out the forms. Yeah, when you fill the forms online, but then turn around and print the print out the confirmation page, and then write down your I-94 and send it in to the unemployment office. Yeah, we know that this is something that's almost committing fraud, but I've kept all the letters that they send me to show proof if somebody has later on.
Mm.
But this is probably something you guys can ask as your state governments and the unemployment offices in your office, if you could do this now. We've talked about this to our ambassadors in Washington, D.C., and they're working on this. So hopefully it will be solved soon. This is something that we could do.
Okay.
So thank you.
Thank you, Consul General. Maybe any more ideas before we delve into these? Again, we're just setting, any specific agenda that you might want us to include onto our agenda for the day. Essentially, the discussions we'll have will kind of be based around these 4 questions, but we're just giving some time now to, if anyone has any other items that needs to be on our agenda to add to it.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Gigi from Washington State.
Hello, Gigi.
Hi, and thank you, panel and everybody for making this happen. I was just looking at the agenda and some of my concerns for our communities, all of our communities, is we can be talking and advocating for what our communities need and what is not done. But something needs to happen with our communities as far as, following the rules of being self-isolated and quarantined, because, as a community, I'm seeing that we are trying to advocate for what our communities, but then again, our community itself need to follow these things. How do we do that? How do we communicate to our communities, to let them know that this is what it is. We need to follow. We need to do more of that, I think, because even with this pandemic going on and everything, you see it on Facebook or whatever, that our communities are still getting together in a large amount of things that, with the larger community, they're saying this and that, but I think a lot of our communities are not really taking that seriously. So how do we communicate with our ground roots and community and trying to figure this stuff out like that?
Okay. Thank you, Gigi. Okay, it sounds like maybe everything else that everyone's ready to discuss fits into there, and including your question, Gigi, I think that fits into what can we do collectively to ensure the health and safety of our people. I think that's a major concern, major question that we need to tackle, at least in terms of discussions today. Natalie, can you maybe just read back on what the previous participants had indicated, if there's anything that doesn't fit into sort of the agenda questions?
Yeah, so I tried to take the notes under these 4 areas. So under the update since the last meeting, just as a quick recap, we have the update on King County and Washington, that now the Marshallese group there is an official partner, and they have now a direct connection through their King County Public Health up to the state level. The other update was in Arkansas, also from the Marshallese community there, from Consul General about how to complete the unemployment. And he also gave some updates on the number of infected, the 2 people who had passed, and the 20 people who have recovered. So updates last meeting. And under the area of concern, we have 4 that I noted down here. One from Arizona was talking about how it's difficult to get the information, and they want to put together a task force, and they need guidance on how to get their foot in the door to get the information to do that. In Washington State, they're getting information on confirmed cases. That's an area of concern for them as well. Also, they want to address the issue of unemployment for COFA people because it's really hard with the lack of documentation. They want subgroup task forces for each Micronesia group. For example, if they're Marshallese and they hear something about Chukis, they want a point person for that community to be able to contact. And then in Arkansas, there's a question about how do they partner with the local government. So to me, that's very similar to what they're facing in Arizona and Washington. And then the fourth area of concern also came from Washington State, talking about how do we work within our own communities to try to get people to follow the social distancing rules, because so many people have been hosting large group meetings on social media. And then under the how do we collectively protect our COFA community, we have two bullet items. One from California-Mexico border area, talking about maybe a one-stop shop, an online resource of some sort with all the links and information, so people all over the country can get the information that they need. The central clearinghouse could be a useful tactic. And then the second tactic that was shared also by the Consulate General in Arkansas, Alec, he suggested that each community, if they can establish a nonprofit organization, that really does help, because then the local and state resources and different kind of grants can funnel through that. So those were the two collective areas, is establishing the nonprofits in each community and this one-stop online shop for links and information.
Okay, so no particularly new items that we need to add to the 4 questions, right, at this point?
No, I don't think so. Those
okay.
That I have.
Okay, great. So then I think, if I may suggest, we will go ahead and open it up and maybe stick with these. And if you think of any other items that should be in our discussion, discussions for the day, feel free to indicate that. Otherwise, we'll just maybe follow these kind of 4 guidelines. We don't have to go in any order of them. I think part of the agenda for today is really just to get our voices together and see if there's anything that might materialize in terms of actionable items. So I'll leave it at that, and we'll just see. Again, unmute yourself and go ahead and speak, and we'll try to facilitate if 2 people are speaking at the same time. But otherwise, let's keep it free flowing and informal, if as it were. And I'll try to guide the time on it. I'll keep the time on us so we finish at 1:30 or an hour and a half.
Hey, Vid, this is Eldon Alec again.
Go ahead.
From Arkansas. I want to address how do we make sure our people know what's going on and be serious about this pandemic? Because we are having that problem here. There's a lot of people still partying and posting online, and this is something that I've been thinking about a lot. But I think if we maybe if we post all the stats on social media, we don't need to say names, but how many people have died in our community, how many are affected, how many are quarantined, and people can see those numbers for themselves. Maybe people will know for sure, but I think people are getting their information from CNN and from the governors, and it doesn't say anything about our communities.
Yeah.
So I think maybe we should just post everything online and tell everybody, week by week, it's going up. Look, more people have died, more people are infected, and maybe people will take that more seriously. Thank you.
Good idea. Let's continue that conversation. Maybe there are other folks around the country that are doing ways. How are other communities dealing with this? Maybe some successful ways that folks are doing.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yes, sir, Mike.
So, I mean, that's also, to me, a major concern. I think we all share that. It's becoming clear that we all share that. at least here in Arizona, again, like everywhere else, you've got your pockets of the communities, and I agree with that idea. If there's, again, the more data, the more that we can put out there and be transparent to our communities, that's really important. But again, I have a feeling like, at least for us here in Arizona, is our church leaders are not part of this COFA stuff, these COFA discussions, these COFA organizations, at least not very active, but they're so influential. They have such a big reach, and people that will listen to them, and this, all of the families and communities, is there a recommended approach to get them into, again, into these calls? Like, I've invited pastors, I've said, please, get on with us. Let's listen to what everybody has to say nationally, so we can hear from other states. Again, here we feel like we're just so behind in Arizona. Again, yeah, you're right. You turn on the news, you hear low numbers from Arizona, but what they don't see is we're 51 out of 50 states in testing. And that's really not that's not an indicator. We need more information, but we also need our, again, the within our communities, the church leaders, the village leaders. In Arizona, we have a huge Sapuk community. They have their own organization. How do we get that connection, that buy-in? Like, I think I'm repeating what's been said by the other states, but it's really that, to me, that's the biggest bang for the buck, is if you get them involved, then, again, this just spreads out.
This is
Go ahead.
Jody.
Go ahead, Josie.
I think we have the same concern here in Hawaii regarding how do we get the information out into our community. As Mr. Alec was talking about ways to learn how to advocate, or build connecting to the government. From our experience so far, I think there's a need to create two ways. One way is to advocate for policies, and that route to partner with the government and to know what's going on statewide, so that we're also connecting that information to our people. But there's that important part, which is our community way, our cultural way to connect with our community. And I know Cici talked about that last week. This morning, we're hearing the same concern again. And that's what we dealt with here too at We Are Oceania. Even though I have staff from the community, there's still that need to include the church, because they are a big part of our culture, and they are a big part of convincing our community regarding the seriousness of this, the impact of COVID on our families. And we're seeing it today here in Hawaii. And I really wish that the church leaders had been involved way before. And I say that because it's the hardest tackle, I think, for us to tackle, because of the belief, the mentality, and the culture. Like I shared before, I was challenged with one of our elders showing up at our office and saw me in a mask and said, "Hey, why your faith is so little? Faith in God. Why your faith is so little? Take off that mask." I understood correctly what the person meant, and I quickly had to think of ways to say it back in a way that to express the meaning for me. So I said, "No, actually, my faith is not little. I'm just having challenge obeying, the order of our God." Because and I don't know, my way was trying to explain that, yes, God is everything. However, we gotta do our part, and He will do the rest, right? We'll do our best in this situation, and God will do the rest. Anyways, how do we get them involved? And maybe, I know Joy's on this conference. Maybe we should start involving our cousins, our uncles, who are church leaders. I know in the martial, like David is there, so maybe they can guide us in how do we work with our church leaders and how do we include them in this conversation, because it is, I think that is the bottom of what we're trying to do. Saving our community needs the right people to be involved. Thank you. Sorry. Pero
Hey, Vic, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, this is Wilfred. Hawaii, Big Island. Yeah, so we actually started a task force that's led by our Consul General. It's a Marshallese COVID task force to address the same kind of concerns. So luckily we have Marshallese association in different islands. On the Big Island, on Kona side, in Hilo sides, even on Kauai and Maui. So we have the infrastructure in place, the structure, so easy to get these guys mobilized. So we start kind of like at Hawaii States. I'm part of that the task force, and then we try to get that information out to these local community, Marshallese communities. As you may know, I think last month, there were like 6 cases. Marshallese were affected by COVID in Kona, and that's kind of that was kind of the impetus to start the program, the task force. And that's so we have like a kind of weekly meetings. There's also like morph into like getting really the church leaders involved. So the church leaders also part of the that conference, the task force. And as we know, like the church leaders, really move the community. Okay, people listen to it. So having the church part of this COVID, it's really kind of it really gets it's more active, if you put it that way. Yeah. So my point is I think it's really important to really get that some kind of a grassroots involved. Yeah. So this is something that maybe it could be part of this national conversation. Our own little thing here. The Marshallese could be part of this that we're trying to build. Yeah, and go from there.
Will, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Bit here. Can you share a little bit of how you're able to get the pastors involved, Marshallese, church pastors throughout the state of Hawaii? Are you able to do that, and how are you engaging them in the task force and in the actionable items?
Yeah, so it wasn't easy. It took some cajoling and get him out of this. So we had to send him out a lot of invitations, get him on the Zoom. Okay, get him involved. So in fact, last week, myself and the Consul General actually had a Zoom meeting with the Protestant group. The Protestant, the group. So we had a kind of a meeting with them and tried to get the words out. And through that, they get it down to their people. Yeah. So it's just you have to be kind of be persistent. Trying to just get them, just invite into the meetings. They don't always come, but once they come and they listen to you, they understand that this is important. Yeah. So yeah, especially once you understand the clinical, the piece of this stuff, making sure that this stuff is not a joke, it's it's serious. Kind of trying to make them understand that all this stuff is doing the non-pharmacological interventions, the isolation, all this stuff is important. So once you understand this stuff to me, then they really get into it. So it's just a matter of just be persistent and trying to get them into the meetings. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Can I, since Josie called out some of the other pastors that may be on the call with us, Joe and others, can you share maybe some thoughts on how, and if this is an issue across, at least in your areas, and how do we begin to address and solve it?
Well, thank you, Dr. Vitt, and my sister, Joycelyn, for volunteering me again. I tried to keep quiet here, but So first of all, just kind of on a general note before getting into that, I think it's important also that we realize what we're doing here. I think we should also know that this platform, this network that is being created here, I think is a promising step for us to bring together, leverage our own expertise in our own community, and also our own networks and connections with our own communities. I do recognize that there are efforts that we're joining in and linking up to, but let's face it, a lot of the larger organizations can only focus so much on the bigger, there's so many communities. And I think any community needs to come together and focus specifically on their community as well. Maybe that's an even better strategy. So I think it's important to recognize that us coming together to share our thoughts is important. To also begin to start a narrative that we can all start writing, composing together and putting it out on Facebook. And that narrative could be directed at the different sectors, like the church sectors. And we can all put our minds together in terms of like addressing some of the theological points, because I think it's one kind of militant theological background that's being pushed. And I feel that it's rooted in a lot of the political rhetoric that has political power in this country. And that's what's driving this kind of also theological perspective that is harmful for our communities. And I think that this can be a place where we start to have that conversation, where we can begin to also provide another alternative view to, faith in God means that we trust in Him, but that we do our due diligence and responsibility. Loving our neighbors is shown by social distancing. That's actually an act of grace. So I think that yes, we all have those connections with individual pastors. I know I have a relationship with a lot of the pastors here, and the way I've talked to them is, I kind of reached out personally to them and just talked. There's not a full group together, but I think that we can all come at it in an approach that doesn't turn them off, doesn't antagonize them, doesn't say you're the enemy, but I think in a Micronesian way where we invite them to come together and say, let's share together this space, and culturally respective ways of doing that. And I know that it's very easy for a lot of people to just look in and say, start judging our community and saying they are disobedient, they are, this and that. But I think we also have to understand that there's a deep value system that underlies a lot of the things that we do. We love to come together, yes, but how can we talk on that level? Because, and here's another thing I just want to put out there, and I'll be quiet, is translation and translating of material is of no use if it doesn't speak to the people. So what I mean is that you can't just take a message and a narrative that's being composed by local government or some group infused with values that are alien to our culture and our people, and translate that and expect that that will resonate with our communities. No, it's not going to. So it's not enough to say, yes, there are translated materials. It's more about who's controlling the conversation. And for us COFA people, we need to be the ones, our own COFA people need to come together and be controlling the conversation for our own folks, because we communicate that in our own languages. I'm not saying we shouldn't partner. We can partner, we can leverage all the resources we can get, but we need to also do our diligence in making those messages more appropriate, more, I guess, relevant to our people. And yes, we all have a responsibility to tell them that, yes, it's not okay for us to continue to do this, but we can do it in alternative ways. Maybe, so that's kind of how I would respond to that. And yes, Sister Jocelyn, I do have connections with a lot of the major denominations, Chuukese denominations down in Hawaii. But I think maybe we can put our heads together going forward from now to see how we can message it and how we can invite them in rather than, antagonize. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Joe. I think those are really key points, particularly as somebody else had raised the question, and I think Gigi had also alluded to as well last week and this time, that beyond these conversations, we need to focus it even more into the smaller communities, the Chuukese community, the Pohnpin communities. And so that might be, an actionable items individually, not as, as a collective, but yeah, individually. So anything else? I'm also aware that there were a lot of data that were thrown out there. I know that the data continues to change. I want to give some time to Dina to maybe share some of the information. I don't know if Anita is on the call, but she had raised some just awareness to the ever-changing data in Hawaii. And then how do we utilize that data to support, as Consul General Alik was saying, how do we push those data out? Go ahead.
Yeah, can you go get my pen? Oh. Sorry. Sorry. Okay.
Hey, sorry, Vid?
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, John here again. These are really good discussions. And that's a good point, Joe, that, we can put our heads together. That will be a more effective approach, in reaching out to other sectors in our community. I just want to get back to, I know I mentioned the idea of maybe some short-term, some immediate action we could do right now. These discussions are great for the long term, but right now, if someone needs information and they're up in Cheyenne, Wyoming, where do they go? I'm thinking maybe we can address this as both on a short-term basis and a long-term basis. Short-term, maybe, do we have maybe a link, COVID-19, COFA-COVID-19.com, where we can refer people to? Right now, this is basically what you need to do. And then we can continue on the long-term goals. I'm just, not all states were created equal. Some communities are smaller, they're less organized. They really don't know where to go other than hearing all the fake news from CNN and Fox, depending on which side you're on. But yeah, no, really. I'm just thinking about the smaller communities that are not quite organized yet, as like, the Arkansas community, they're more organized. Hawaii, the Pacific Northwest. I'm just thinking of the people right now who, I actually know of a person who's been struggling to try to find information, but smaller communities, group of people who are not quite organized yet, and they just want to know. They need to know the basics. That's all. Where do they go? I can just tell them, just go to COFA, COVID-19, COFA, COVID, whatever.com. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, John. That's an important component, maybe an actionable item for a website that sort of connects all of these and provides the data or information that maybe our people need. Okay.
Can I volunteer you, Dr. Vid, for that, for the COVID-19 COFA Sorry, returning the favor.
Sure.
Oh,
Yes.
smart man.
Yes, I will. I can commit to that. That sounds like a way to reciprocate my volunteering with everyone else.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Antiro.
How about that? So let's, at least in terms of an actionable item, maybe just note it on, Natalie, on actionable item. A website perhaps, COFA-COVID-19 or COFA-COVID.com or .org will be created. And then it may not have information per se, unless people provide information, but what we can do is I can, create users from each of our, whoever volunteers from their different communities to be able to upload data as it's available, just providing links to those so that it doesn't become, well, we can provide information there as well. So if there are translated information, we can provide it there as well, just so that we have a portal where maybe all of this information is shared out. So I can commit to that for sure, to create that website.
Hey,
For
Dr.
us.
Vitt,
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Doctor.
just to piggyback on that volunteering by Consul General Michelle.
Volunteering.
No, I think that's a great idea, and you definitely are the right man, because you've done all these things. But I also want to bring to attention that at least a couple of our consul generals are on the call, from the Marshall Islands, as well as FSM and Joe Elliott. I think it'll be very important that we also go through those offices, because many of our folks, as they need things that they get become challenged within the states, that's where they usually would turn to. So definitely, at least make that connection with them as well.
That's a great idea. I mean, I think if we do agree on continuing with something like a website, it would definitely be the link, just somewhere where they can find. So if any Marshallese is not aware of it, we can, it'll be linked to all of those, right? I don't know. We're just kind of thinking out loud right now. I hadn't planned on being shared to put this on, but if it's something that would be helpful for our community, then I definitely can commit to helping in that situation.
Yes, Vin, it's not going to be the final stop. That's kind of a portal. Yeah, you're right.
Absolutely.
That will connect people to all the different links.
Absolutely. Yeah. That would be the only way to do it, because we can't, I don't know that we can take on another, we can't add on another organization that, I think we've had enough. I think it's just be the link to all of those different entities and actual responsible. Somebody had tried to get on the call.
That's me. I just
Go ahead.
wanted to add it to Dr. Riglin's suggestion, feeding off from Joe's comments and everyone's comments. So I see what the Marshallese or RMI COVID task force is doing, and it's very organized. And I really commend them on doing that. And I know a little bit because I have a lot of conversation with Consul General Silk here in Hawaii, and I was faced with the question, how come FSM doesn't have one? And I know it's not my place to address that, but I think, in order to build the resource, also there's a need to organize ourselves. Like we already mentioned this before. So like RMI is organized. I think FSM also needs to organize, pull in the people that needs to be in line to be able to get the information, not just to this portal, but also the information to the people, like the people that Joe had described. Maybe this is where we can pull those people in. And I've thought a lot about how do we organize FSM where RMI is so easy because it's one culture, one language, and one people. FSM is multiple cultures, multiple languages. How do we organize that? So I thought about coming to you, Fit and Joe. Sorry again, to bring you that suggestion, idea, and kind of like see what you guys feel about how do we organize FSM. But I think we hear it often with people who are
Sarah, I'm
serving
going to go
the
online, so
community.
please quiet.
with people who are serving the community, like CC in Washington, I mean, Gigi, how difficult it is to reach our community individually. So my fear before was always, I don't want to divide our community. But with the COVID, it's a totally different, my belief and what I see now shift. This is where we use our, I think, traditional system, or where we're gonna go through those route, because that's the only way we can organize our community, and that's the only way we can get the information through that pipeline. So creating those pipelines.
May
Okay.
I share? Oh, sorry.
All right, go ahead. Is it Kathleen?
Yes, this is
Okay.
Kathleen. Hi, everyone. Kathleen Jonathan, I'm in Oregon, Salem. I'm part of the Marshallese community in Salem, and I sit on the board of CAN with Joe. And I'm also part of the Oregon Marshallese Community Association board member. Just to piggyback on what Joe said earlier and to address some of the concerns that Josie has in terms of how do you mobilize the community? How do you get those church folks involved in what's happening with our communities? And I think it goes back to how we are as Pacific Islanders. You establish relationship, you establish those trusting relationships, and if you have to go sit down at a church service, or just it wouldn't hurt to hear, study, or talk about the Bible and get to know the verses, because you can't have a conversation with church leaders if you don't meet them halfway. So you give and take. And so for working with our community, we've been able to set up the Oregon Marshallese Community Association and have each church send their representation to be part of the board of the Oregon Marshallese Community Association. The struggle is we're so new with this 501c3 that it's really hard to start educating our people, but there's other resources, and we're still trying to build that foundation of the organization so that we can really have those authentic conversations with our elders and really have those meaningful conversations where we can advocate from the grassroots. So my point is, build those relationships. It doesn't have to be related to this COVID-19. If this pandemic is really, it's like a wake-up call, start building those relationships. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. Very good point.
Hey, Vic.
You're welcome.
Yes, go ahead, the Consul General.
Thank you. I just want to piggyback on what Kathleen was saying. Here in Arkansas, we have a lot of Marshallese churches, and I've been living in Oregon for a long time. I knew the influence of the pastors. So when I came here and started this job, I've been to all the churches here, to the church services. In fact, every Sunday I choose a different church just to make those relationships with these pastors. And so when this pandemic is on, I even got all their cell phone numbers.
It's 10 o'clock.
And I every time that there's a new message that I got to tell them, we have a group chat on text messages, and I text message everybody what's going on. And one thing I found out is, as a group, nobody responds. But when I called them directly, one by one, we really talk, and they really respond to me. And I can tell there are some pastors here that they don't really respond. They don't come to the meetings, and they're the ones that are posting parties online. So those are the ones that I'm really working with. But I agree with Kathleen. This is a good time to establish relationships with these pastors. So they don't think that we only need them when we need them. We go to all their functions when they invite us. We go to the church services, and we go worship with them. You know, one pastor even told me that he appreciates that I didn't just come to and wait till the end of the church service and have my meeting, but I actually went before the service started and worship with them. So establishing relationship, it's very important. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Consul General. I think everyone's making a great point. I think everyone's in agreement that the pastors are important allies in this work, and that relationship building is a great start. Yeah. Yes. Let me see. Go ahead, Shelton.
Sorry, Sheldon again from Arkansas, and great points by our Consul General. He's actually one of the most blessed persons here because he goes.
I don't know if they could hear me.
We can hear you, whoever that is on the phone.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this is Claudia Kircher, Island Liaison, Arizona, and I listen to all the wonderful voices out there, and I'm going to ask and encourage all of you to, yes, let's have a page to where we are small, we don't receive much information, and that we want to help our COFA folks here. And Consulate, is it Sheldon? Oh, no. Yes,
Sheldon.
Alex Sheldon, and then Dr. Ricklon and so forth. I've met several of you. We would like to learn from you, and if you can figure out where we can get the information to provide to share with our folks here. Yes, we're on lockdown, but slowly Arizona is opening up, and we're going to begin to make visits with them in a safe manner to bring information that be worthwhile to them to help them. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I know Mike Pangilinan is in Arizona as well, so maybe outside this call you'll connect up to build if you haven't already done so. Shelton, go ahead again.
Yes, I just wanted to thank you, Claudia, for that information. I just wanted to piggyback on what the Consul General Alec was talking about earlier. And I think, part of it is also, we definitely need to build this relationship, but, we will need also guidance from many of our pastors who are actually active, like, Pastor Joe, I'm volunteering you again. But like he said, there are pastors who are active in many other things that we do. So we're able to kind of reach the community through them. But, there are also others. And I guess it comes with the territory of the different churches or the different religions, because some of them are a little bit territorial in terms of how do you reach them? How do you work together as a group of pastors? And, if we can find that, and how is it that we can get all these pastors to work together? We definitely need them because there are connections to the community. But in terms of what messages do we work through the pastors, or how is it that we can reach the community so we can have them basically buy into the same thoughts and processes that all of us are talking about on this call? How do we get them to see what we see and have the same concerns and have some kind of plan for this? And I think that's the missing link, at least for me here in Arkansas, is trying to figure out how do we do with all that, because there are those who are definitely involved and those are those who are not, and how do we bring in the others into the game, basically.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Go ahead.
Well, yeah. So yeah, I just want to stress the importance of really owning the information. Okay, owning information. So there's a lot of CDC guidelines out there. Okay, those can be easily accessible online. But what's more important is really owning the information and translating it in such a way that's more culturally appropriate to our people. Culturally sensitive to our people. And then to me, that's kind of that's the challenge. Okay, but there's plenty of information you can get there online.
Dr. Alec.
One of our mission here, our task force, is to get that information and try to translate that in such a way that it makes sense and is culturally appropriate to the people. Yeah, because to me, once they understand the information, it's that's the key. If they understand that, So that's kind of, yeah, that's what we struggle with. So we're trying to gather all the information, try to collate that, and then translate so that's culturally sensitive and competent. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Will. Any other thoughts into the discussion here? And we don't have to stay on the topic of how we approach or work with our pastors. I think we probably said that.
Yeah, I want to join in if I can.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you. Lenwo. My name is Triskel Jack. I'm in the state of Washington. I was listening to the conversation and I'm very grateful about it. I want to share that for the immediate need of my community, because I'm a both church leader and also an organizational leader here. Been in the state of Washington for almost 40 years. So in the immediate need, there's funeral. We have funeral that the governor said not to be more than 10 people, but the funeral home said 20 is fine or more. So that's one issue. And softball is coming up in the near summer where Koreans are like fishes in the water that they like to pull together, sharing the pads and gloves and all this. So touching the surface and stuff like that. But I find out that besides being a leader of the church, people with your expertise are very needed to come. We have a weekly delegate show that we do to our community. We do talk about the Bible. So we brought, I want to say I do our Consul General, Mr. Joe Enlet. When he came to speak to our community through the telecast, he moved the needle by thousands of viewers. So people of your stature who knows the medical science, who has been in the field, and who has been doing network collectively, if we can invite you on this, on the rest of the time that this pandemic is still going on, we know there is still uncertainty about when things will be opening up. But in these past weeks, when things are just, they're starting to tell that you can go to the park, everybody rush out. And they forgot that the restroom for the governor is different than the restroom at the park, where, you know, it's metallic and people can get sick from it too. So my point really is, I agree with one of the, if that was Dr. Rickland that mentioned about, or Mr. Rickland who mentioned about the minister. Not all ministers are very proactive about things like this, but it's good to have them. But people of your stature, that people look at, well, he's a doctor. I mean, I'd rather listen to a doctor than, you know, a janitor on this matter of the pandemic. But as far as networking, I'm an interpreter here in the state of Washington, and Mr. Joe is very right about the translated material. You can spend about 2 hours translating something. People looked at it and just said, cool, and toss it out. If it doesn't, you know, they cannot identify with it. So how do we meet that challenge of interpreting that material and not losing the elements of the
one thing that I always argue about the interpretation and the translation is like, for most people.
Jeremy, hold on a second, Jeremy. Yeah, hold on a quick second. Let's okay, have Mr. Driscoll finish.
Let me wrap it up. So I'm saying that how can we meet that challenge by interpreting it and not sugarcoat it so that we don't lose the element of the reality of it. I think if people of your stature, your professionalism, make like telecast on-site, online, where you can come in and talk, people will listen more. Because there's a lot of information being written on website, but not everybody goes to it. It's so convenient. We're doing this online because people can use the phone. God says to Aaron, what do you have on your end? I have a staff. Then use the phone. Use the phone to disseminate the information quicker. And to answer quickly to that, when, yeah, there's a challenge when I have a brother who's a minister too. So somebody say, why are you wearing a mask? I say, well, why did they go inside and lock their door and, you know, brush their door with the blood of the lamb? Or why do they hold a tool and a hammer at the same time, a weapon and a hammer at the same time? So I agree, we really need to know how to answer to all these challenges that are coming. thank you for letting me speak my say.
Thank you very much, Minister or Pastor. I'm going to let Jeremy Hilo. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Oh, I apologize. Actually, I was just trying to discuss the discussion with my family here while we're listening, and I didn't know that I was not muted, so I apologize.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I'm so sorry, and I thank you all for that. And all I got to say is I'm just learning, listening, and following protocols. And I think that everything y'all saying are important. We all should be doing this kind of stuff to help our people and help our neighbors and families. But I'm home and I'm actually working. I'm able to do my work, going up on the mountain, come back home and stay with families. But other than that, we're a movie and all of our community works in here. It's all online, so we're not able to see each other. And I am very happy to be listening to everybody's contribution here. So I'll be listening again. Back to listening.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. That's Jeremy from Micronesians United Big Island. Okay. David, yes, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Again, Yahweh to everyone, and
go ahead.
Thank you, and my respect to all of you here today, taking time to join this great discussion. I came in late, so my apologies. Came in as John was coming up with this, some of the strategies on immediate respond to what's happening, short-term goals, and then still not taking our eyes away from our long-term goals with a lot of the good discussion. I'm sure there's been a lot of great information already. I just wanted to share too in terms of the website, I agree, at least a central point where we can disseminate information or be a platform to kind of being off of other great informations that are out there that's been mentioned already. And we'll be happy to contribute to that and help in any ways we can from the from CAN generally as a outreach consultant for CAN and chapter of CAN Washington, and I hope our team from Texas are available as well there to chime in from Texas. Just wanted to give a shout out to that idea. It's a great idea to start, and happy to support as much as we can and coordinating with our church leaders as well as our community organizations that are throughout.
David, while I have you, thank you so much for that good point. While I have you on there, maybe can you share a little bit of some updates on the advocacy efforts for Heroes
Medicaid.
Act, Medicaid?
You guys know I get nervous a lot of time when I'm just really passionate about these things, right? And so bear with me, but thank you for again bringing that up. I think historically everyone here, all of those that have been putting their own back and break their sweats and tears and blood into this work of advocating for the Medicaid as we know it. In '96, it was stripped away, and not by choice, but in a lot of the discussions they said kind of fell through the crack, and it's been 25 years and nothing has been done yet. And so we're excited. Good news is for the first time ever, the Congress has taken action on COFA and restoring Medicaid. It's not completely a full past, but it's, again, for the first time for all these years, they've taken an action and include a language of COFA Restore Medicaid and being funded to restore Medicaid for all COFA families and communities throughout the nation. And that was acted through the HEROES Act, which was passed yesterday. And right now there's recognized to our Senator Hirono and a lot of the team from Hawaii that have been, most of you have been working on it for all these years, and it's grown, and now we have a strong bipartisan standalone bill. While we're not taking any action on the standalone bill, HR 4821, there's a Senate mirror bill of that. In short, it's called COFA Act. We were able to work with our national partners, Asia Pacific Island American Health Forum, and other 300 some organizations that have now signed up nationwide to support this work. And again, it's been now included and it was passed yesterday under the HEROES Act. There is no clear pathways yet on the Senate, but we know there's going to be sometime maybe in the next month or so, but hopefully sooner, that the Senate will have a discussion about this. And we have no doubt all of our Senate partners, including, again, Senator Hirono and many others, are already carrying this heavily, but they need our help in getting, especially some of the Senate Republicans. So for any of our states leaders on this call today that are in some of our red state, respectfully, Texas, Missouri, Iowa, Minnesota, and those areas, even if there's any influence from our Republican sponsors on the House side, like Congresswoman McMorris Rogers and WIMAC, continue to push those and see if they can give us to hold the line and making sure. We heard from McConnell that this is a dead bill upon arrival, but we never lose hope and prayer that we can get this done with us working together on this effort. So again, my recognition to all of the COFA members that have been working on this all these years, and finally we're making good progress. So keep it up.
Thank you so much, David, for that. That's great news. It is very heartening to know that, since we've continued to pay into Medicaid all these years, that we're not able to utilize that.
David?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Sorry, Sheldon again from Arkansas. I like to piggyback on people's points. That's all I do is piggyback. But thank you, David, for that report. And, it was quite an exciting time when we got that text and message about us passing that HEROES Act, including the COFA language. So, we know that it's going to go in front of the Senate sometime in the near future. So I think this is where we as COFA leaders and citizens, through our networks and connections with each individual state agency and senators and legislators, we need to really reach out at this point. We're halfway there. We've been working on this for almost 25 years now. So we're almost there. If we can just get the bipartisan support in the Senate so that it can pass, it'll be a reality that we've been fighting for. So, I think this is a call for all of us. This is a call for all of us to kind of reach out to your connections in the states and in the government, and even call your state senators that are in Congress so we can get this passed. And, let's get it there. We're almost there. So, just a few more steps and we're there. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Shelton. Just a time check. It is now, at least in California, 1:19. So we've got another 20 minutes before we call an end to at least this discussion today. Any other items? Maybe a minute or two, then I'd like to just review the actionable items that have come up and see if we could take ownership of some of those actions.
Hi, this is Angela Edwards.
Hey, Angela, go ahead. Good to see you.
Hi. So I'm piggybacking off of David and Dr. Sheldon. So I just want to volunteer. I know that sometimes a lot of you are pretty active in your communities, so figuring out ways to do calls of action, that's not super difficult for everybody. But if there's anyone who's very overwhelmed by it and they just need a little guidance, I'll put my email in here, and feel free to email me if you don't know how to contact your senators or anything like that, and I can try to help with that, because I know that can sometimes be really challenging. But if it's something you're interested in but you've just never done it, I'll put my info in, and feel free to reach out to me. You can email me.
Angela? Angela, while we have you, you want to give a plug to your blog and the great work you're doing right now?
Yes. Okay. So the month of May, as many of us know, is Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And so for the month of May, what I decided to do was 30 days of 30 interviews with Micronesians that you may not know, just because I feel like representation is so important, and there's not a lot of people who even know what Micronesians are, or think how we impact our communities, or how our communities in America impact us a lot of the time too. So if you listen to podcasts at all, it's pretty much anywhere you can find podcasts. It's on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. And you can hear me talking with different Micronesians all through the month of May. And actually, I've got a lot of positive feedback, so it'll continue, not daily, but weekly after the month of May. And it'll switch from, instead of interviews, topics that impact Micronesians. So.
And they can search for it by searching for Micronesians by Micronesians. Is that what it's
Correct.
called?
Yep, and if you go on Instagram, you can get to the link from there, and it's all one word, for Micronesians by Micronesians.
Right on. Thank you so much,
Claudia
Angela.
Again.
Go ahead, Claudia.
Yes, this is Claudia again. Yes, Angela, thank you for that. And piggybacking on that, we did a podcast on Spotify and Apple. You can find us on May 4. We launched it, as well as, yes, I would, since we are Island Liaison, a nonprofit organization, 501c3, to just be clear, we cannot participate politically, but we would like to ask for all of you, your helps that are C4 who are in the political arena, to work side by side with us and provide us with current information so that we can, as a resource, bring out those current information to the community that we are serving.
Great.
So in Arizona, there's Mike, yeah, and others. Angela, we met last year, yeah. So that is why I'm walking a fine line when I'm listening, and I cannot be involved politically because of our status. But I'm going to want to rely very much on you folks to give us information currently on all of the political changes that are coming up, especially affecting the renewal of the COFA Compact in 2023 for FSM and RMI, and Palau in 2024. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Claudia. Thank you very much for that. And, you know, just so that we, and we're going to go into just a review of our actionable items. But I do want to point out that the website for CAN, CANN.US, is a good website to keep up with all of the advocacy efforts that that great organization is really leading for us. So CAN.US.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, because ours is islandliaison.org, and I try to put information there as well.
Okay,
Islandliaison.org, and then we do have an Island Liaison Facebook as well. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And just so, you know, everybody that's registered for here, one other thing that I'd like to just say before we get into action, well, this may be part of actionable item, but I would like to, you know, I think Joe had raised in last week's meeting about, you know, getting to know specific organizations in Oregon that, you know, he had known, which I, you know, obviously many of us don't know all these great organizations that we're getting to know now. I will be emailing everyone on this call if they would like their organizations to be listed on the pacificleaders.com or pacificleaders.org website that we currently have now, just to, you know, for some of these, some of the ways to get our people out there. But I'd like to create a, you know, a place on that website where people can find that. Okay. Angela, I think I don't know if you're trying to get in on the call or you're not muted. Let's transition now. We have now, well, 5 minutes. Natalie, can you just review maybe some actionable items that you have written down for us in terms of the discussions?
Yeah, thank you, Vid. I'm assuming that Vid is going to send out the total notes document after this, and so we can have this for you. So I'll just go through quickly what some of the action items are. One is that we're going to create the COFA-COVID.com or something similar to that as a portal for information. There'll be users in the community to help with that. Vid will manage it. The consulate generals will be in a leadership role since they're already critical links for our communities. And this will be a portal of links to relevant organizations that already have it. This website will not be creating their own content, but rather will be linking to relevant stuff. Another action item is the Medicaid Advocacy. We need people to be calling their senators, particularly those that have Republican senators, to support the HEROES Act. And then I've also been trying to keep up with what's going on in the group chat area. And it looks like there's a call to produce a video with the most popular people in each community that could perhaps be like a viral video to get messages out to the communities as a way of, leveraging social media. There's also a lot of action around building the relationships with church leaders and in order to get messages out that way. So I have a lot more notes in here, but to be honest, I've been typing as fast as I can and have not done the critical thinking work on exactly what's an action item and what's a longer term goal. So that will come when we share the notes.
Yes, and we will share out the notes. Thank you so much, Natalie from Pacific Relevance Consulting, for keeping the notes for us. We will share those out. Any last minute items? And I think what we'll do is we'll send out the notes, and if there's anything that we miss from that notes, it'll be a Google Doc, and people kind of add in things they may have wanted to say but didn't get a chance to say, just so that we have some other ideas on there. Anything else that we need to be aware of within the last, or any announcements? Anything that we can for the next few minutes?
I'm joining you because it was a forwarded message to me. So Dr. Raatior,
Yes.
I will send you Island Liaison's contact information.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Any last minute, any announcements or celebrations?
One point of clarification.
Go ahead.
In some of the conversation, I think that there was a little bit of confusion maybe around what 501c3 organizations can do politically and what they can't do politically. What they can't do politically is endorse particular candidates or particular political parties. But what they can do is things like advocacy for specific bills. They can advocate for that. That's a part of what a 501c3 is allowed to do. They can sign on support letters. They can provide testimony and things like that. So I just wanted to make sure that around that Medicaid issue, that there's no confusion, that all of you who are leaders of 501c3s, you can present as yourself and as an organization. What you can't do is say something against a particular political person, or you can't endorse a particular political candidate for office. Just as clarification.
Yes, thank you for that, because we are very clear on that. And so we've been supporting the repeal of the Medicaid and every local thing that we can get. Island Liaison has been supporting, but you're correct. We cannot individually support an individual political person.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Very good point, Natalie. Any other things? We've got 2 minutes, announcements, celebrations.
Yes, Vid.
Yes, go ahead, Joe first, and then the second.
Oh, sorry, just a little thing. If those of you, especially my sister Joycelyn and others, the idea of about creating a specific FSM task force or something like that. If you want to continue that conversation, whoever wants to, maybe we can continue that. Just a little, Vid, are we able to continue on this?
Yeah, this call, I'll stay.
Okay.
Absolutely. In fact, we'll end it, and whoever wants to stay on. We've got unlimited time on this call, so I'll continue to stay on, for other announcements. But somebody else had wanted to share something out before we close it out.
Yeah, Vid, I think that's me. I was going to just bring up again, it might have been brought up before, but in the efforts and the pushing the advocacy for healthcare for our COFA communities, the Health Forum has partnered with ACOM out in Arkansas and other Arkansas communities on the survey. It's going to become nationwide and accessible for all COFA languages, not just Marshallese. And I just want to flag that again, because it's going to come at you, and we would appreciate all the support from all of us on the call and those that are not on the call to make sure we gather as much data as possible to help us for COVID-19 immediate short-term goals and long-term goals as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Andrew, did you have something to share out? I see. No. Okay.
Hey, Vid, I do want to. I want to
Yes,
share
sir.
something.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to share that here in Arkansas, we have a Facebook page. It's called Marshallese COVID-19 Task Force Facebook page, and we're partnering with a lot of local partners here, including University of Arkansas Medical Sciences, and they've provided all kinds of information regarding COVID-19. So I just want to welcome all the other communities to go to that page and get information for your communities.
Perfect.
And we're going to continue to feed that Facebook page with all the information that they give us from the Arkansas Health Department and University of Arkansas Medical Science.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Consul General. Yes. Yes, go ahead.
Hi, this is Dina from
Hey, Dina, go ahead.
Honolulu. I'm going to put in the notes our medical legal partnership alerts page. One of my sisters completed an infographic, if you scroll all the way to the bottom. It's 3 ways to get your I-94. And the reason we did this is that we just had our first success with requesting an I-94, an old one, pre 5 years ago, through FOIA, Freedom of Information Act requests. And that means that they did not have to pay the $445 to get the new I-94. It had been hit or miss before, but we had success with it, so we thought we'd share it. Basically, you have to, it's an only online form. My immigration lawyer staffer is almost done with a FAQ, so a very detailed description of where to put what information on the form so that advocates can help people try to get requests. It takes, like, it could take up to a month, but so does the old-fashioned search. And it might, I mean, since it's free, it might be a much better way. And even though it takes a while, better for people to have their documents. So yeah. If you want, we'd be happy to do a longer kind of training for people to walk through the process.
Okay, great. There's a commitment right there, volunteering. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Would you be able to send to info@islandliaison.org that information? Because I've been working with a lot of folks here that needs their I-94. And when that came across my desk, I researched it, and that is one information that is greatly needed here for the FAS people from Micronesia that we're working with, COFA.
Yeah,
So,
I'd be happy to tell you all of our information. And
wonderful. Yeah, you can send it to info@islandliaison.org. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to just to close off this particular time together. You can feel free to leave us or stay on if you want. We've got unlimited time on this, but maybe I'll stay on for another half hour if people want to stay on. But I just wanted to close with a sincere gratitude for the amazing knowledge and the incredible passion that people are sharing out and are bringing to the table. I think this is, again, what we're doing here is really just utilizing, existing technology to bring our people together, have these virtual village meetings. I hope it continues. I'll always, give you my commitment to utilize my university's technology to support the work, because they do support us in this effort. That's San Jose State University. So again, thank you so much. If you need to go on with your other plans, God bless you. Thank you so much, and we'll stay on. All right, so any other thoughts? Thank you, Jeremy. Take care, say hello to family.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be around.
Thank you again. Yeah. This is Claudia again. I enjoyed working with all of you, but I just want to give you a little bit of background for those who don't know. I am from Micronesia. I was 1 year old when the H-bomb was tested in Majuro. My family lived there. We lived in Ponape and Chuk. So during Trust Territory, and in 1973, we became U.S. naturalized citizens. So when I came here to Arizona in 2010, I was just the census partnership assistance. So we found Micronesians, and in 2014, we became nonprofit to help our COFA people. And in Arizona, we only have small, approximately 3,000, and we've been working with them closely. And I'm glad that we're working together with Mike. And like I said, they're more of the political thing, but we're wanting to help more. And through all of you folks' resources, we can join to join up with our resources to help better their lives.
Great.
Thank you for letting me share.
No, thank you so much, Claudia. Thank you so much for continuing to maintain ties with your roots. So appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay, I will leave you folks now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Claudia. Have a great day.
Yeah.
Be safe.
Likewise.
Okay,
Yes,
take
bye.
care.
Hey, just FYI, so we're actually building a portal on the RMI Consul General's Facebook page.
Great.
19. So especially it's all,
This is the Hawaii Consul General. So
Honolulu,
the Honolulu one. Got it. Okay.
So it's actually there's a COVID-19 portal. So we translated materials. So feel free to check it out. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, and those are the kind of things. I mean, just for everybody's sake, when I create this website, that those are the links that we're going to be needing to just link directly to, so that people can find it. And so if we market the COFA COVID-19 website for people to just find, translated materials and all of that stuff, that would be great. Or these task force information, that's fantastic. So maybe one of those emails will go out once the site is created to have people recommend. I'll put a form there where people can send in links to, to populate the site. Any other thoughts? Again, feel free to leave, folks, but we'll stay on if you need to.
Yeah, I have something. I actually want to see if Simeon Jacob from Oregon is still on the call.
Hopefully, I saw him. Let's see.
Yeah, he shared some things, and I think it's important to hear the concerns that he has. Simeon, are you still there? Sorry for calling you out, brother, but I think you brought up a really good point.
Yes, go ahead, Simeon.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. It's pretty similar to what some folks were sharing. Like Joe, you were talking about how just taking government material and just getting it translated is enough. And I feel like a lot has already been covered of addressing my concern or thought, but it was just around what kind of messaging do we need to put out for folks who do not even believe COVID-19 exists. And I think it's kind of like what, so it's first that one, and then just to encourage folks to, like, if that's where they're at currently, what can we point to that isn't just data? Because it's like, I think there's like so much data already available, and if that's not convincing folks that these things are real, then what else can we be doing to encourage them to take action? Because like, as I think many of folks have already shared, people are still meeting together. And so it's more so, like, I have been trying to tell people, like, I don't want for you to lose someone, for you to believe that this is real, and to like take the necessary precautions. And so that's kind of the question that I think I posted earlier on. But if that's something that you all have been facing, but it has been a lot of one-on-one conversations that I've been having to have with community members. But if there's some way that we can systemize it or just make it where we have a little bit more broader reach, a lot of the organizing is now having to happen digitally, and what kind of messages and how we're connecting with people on Facebook or Instagram, or some people are now doing podcasts to get information out. But yeah, that's kind of like the things that at least I've been working through and trying to work here in Portland and trying to connect with folks. So
Can I just follow up, Vid? Thank you.
Yes, please.
Simeon, thank you for sharing that. And just to further also kind of put you on the spot, do you think that a lot of, and I know you have a lot of experience with our communities, do you think that the behaviors are really influenced more by like the political nature of this COVID-19, or is it a more just religious influence, or what are your thoughts on that?
So at least like with like I'll just like speak for like people who are my age. It's just like I don't see how this affects me. Like I still have to go to work, and like I think people are still out, and like I'm seeing like oh, I really want to just hang out with my friends and like or like my cousins, and like they still hang out, and that's one of those things. Or like I want to see my boyfriend, or like like things like.
We can't argue with that one.
It's like one of those things where people are recognizing that they actually have to change their livelihood to do so. And you know, like yeah, there's like so many other things that this feels similar to when it comes to your well-being and health. So
thank you.
Your question in short, no, it is with either of those things.
Go ahead, John. Was that you?
Could I add something to that?
Oh, Jeremy, go ahead.
This is Jeremy. Yeah, I was still here.
Go ahead, Jeremy.
Yeah, and I think that is not so unique to our community, and I think that's one of the things to think about is that there are, if you live in a community in your neighbors don't really care about that, that's also influences how you behave as well. And I'm seeing it here, you know. And so it's not the way people think about how, you know, whether they believe it or not, it's all, whether it's political, it's religious, it's your own, how you think about your own, what do you call that? You know, situation, your own condition, like you think that you're immune to it. If you're a younger person and you don't have all of those facts, that's also influential. So I think that is a hard target to do, to kind of key into like our community, because I even posted this thing on our Facebook for My Community United, and the first comment was one from one of the religious leaders here. And so there is that also the people in the religious content too, that it's also people who think that God will help you if you just believe in God. But there's also you know, in my community there's a social cultural aspect to it too, where there's like, oh, we all would, you know, that's also culture where we're Micronesians, where we like to stay together, we like to live, even cousin, uncles and grandpa, everybody lives together. So here, even though they live in different households, they're still meeting up because and so that's the social cultural aspects of it. But I also here with friends who come to buy beer nuts from me, I try to like set up things so okay, so this is you come, I set up your stuff in the front, you come pick it up and go. And then folks that come inside say, no, don't walk up here. And they're not wearing masks. Okay, I'm not doing business with you.
Good for you, John.
Yeah, and so don't walk up to my driveway. So put on a mask or don't come up here. Oh, what you worry about, brother? No, there's no this. So there are, so I'm like, wow. So depending what kind of resources where they're getting their information from, and if you're, so it is not something unique to our community. So I know it, which I really, and I do talk to my cousins, like, dude, you got to take this seriously. And it's like, oh, prove it. How is to prove it? It's like, maybe they're not getting that kind of news, or they just don't care about that kind of news. So that's what I just want to point out. It's like,
well, can I say something real quick? I think that, again, that's a really important point. Is we've talked a lot about all these different things, and every angle is correct. It's true to an extent, or to the full possibility of it. But that defines the gravity of this, or the magnitude of this. Is we need to have a very broad spectrum of an approach in how we educate and notify the people. targeted churches, communities, families, villages, ages, genders, everybody. You have your network, you have the people you talk to and trust. Eventually you're going to get to somebody that can talk to somebody, and then they're going to buy in and they're going to trust that.
Yeah.
At some point. But if we just, again, we've talked a lot about all the different ways, and all of those are good, and we just have to find, that mechanism. And that website, that one-stop portal is a great idea. I think we need that for way more reasons than just COVID-19. But it gives us a good start. And then, again, we've talked all about the local, it does drive down to the local levels, your local levels. And, the disadvantage of being Pohnpei is I think we're the smallest group here, but fortunately I'm married to a Chukis, which is one of the larger groups here. and so, last night I kind of hijacked the fellowship, which I probably am going to pay for a while, but I used that opportunity to talk about the COFA and the issues that surround COFA. But again, I'm rambling now, but I'm in support of all this, and I just appreciate this. I'm learning so much, and I'm very appreciative of it. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Yes, you are fortunate, Mike, to marry a Chukis, just FYI.
Especially that particular Chukis. Yeah, you're right.
I have videos.
Yeah.
But
congratulations, Mike.
Can I just? Sorry, Vid. Sorry for hijacking your.
No, it's not mine. This is ours.
Two things. First, do you all agree that, well, at least for the FSM people, that FSM should also have a kind of a task force, complementary to the RMI task force?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, it sounds like it sounds to me that the task force specifically for the countries, but I mean, there might be a Chukis. There might need to be a Chukis task force. There might need to be a Pohnpei task force. Smaller, because the Chukis, we can't speak to the Pohnpeins or the Yapis, and as much as the Yapis can't speak to us, and so yeah, maybe an FSM task force that actually would be empowered in the state-specific, language-specific ones. Sounds to me.
Thank you. I think our consulate and Ken are thinking about these things, about the task force. But I also want to offer it out there. We have a little bit of funding to do some of the national coordinating work that we're doing. Just want to also put it on the table for those who have other sources of funding. Maybe we could combine and leverage it.
Joe, I think you're.
Oh, is it working? Not working?
Yeah, I think it kicks in and out. Because when you were doing a prayer, that happened as well.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
No worries. It's not the devil. No. Not the devil.
I thought that was like thunder and lightning.
You will. I mean. All right.
Well, the second one, the second one is, I want to hear from the others who haven't spoken up. It's good to kind of hear the feedback from everybody, so we get a sense that we're all united. So I'm looking at like
is there.
Is there, and the rest.
Linda is there. I know the husband has been talking, but I want to hear from Linda too.
Hi. I'm Lisa. I'm Lisa Merrill from Phoenix, Arizona. I know Mike, and Claudia is my cousin. She works a lot with COFA. I lived here in Arizona. I'm originally from Guam, and I moved here in Arizona over 40 years ago. And to be embarrassed, I am still learning a lot about COFA and the COFA nations. I am a partnership specialist for the U.S. Census Bureau, and my lane is Native Hawaiian Pacific Islanders. And when you're speaking about the different COVID task force, and you're saying breaking them down by, the different islands or the different COFA states, I totally understand, because for the Census Bureau, out of 300 people in the Denver region, there's 12 states, I am the only Pacific Islander. So they throw me in with all the Asian Americans.
Yeah.
And they say, oh, it's okay, Lisa, go with the Asian Americans. It's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I've been fighting that for 40 years,
Sure.
Coming to Arizona. And so I totally understand this. And not only before I worked for the Census Bureau, I'm also a community advocate. I've volunteered everywhere I can. My husband goes, if I worked as hard in my volunteering, he wouldn't have to work. He could stay home and I could be the sugar mama. But volunteering is my passion. I do a lot of things. I was one of the first navigators for the Affordable Care Act. I also do access assistance. And there is a COVID task force here in Arizona that is not government based. It was actually started by community people, people such as yourselves that do things for free. I've tried to share a lot of the information with Mike and Claudia, because I believe that, when you see other big organizations, why reinvent the wheel, right? So you gather the information that is correct, and then you look at it, and then you pull from there what your community can use. So you customize it for your community. So this COVID website, whenever anyone posts, they have to verify that it's true, that it's real information, not something that was made up. They have everything from food pantries making masks, medical, legal, and because I am not educated enough in regards to the COFA nations and what they're, I understand the Medicaid, and I'm so proud of you guys that we're able to push that. So I don't want to pass on information that may not relate to the community, because that seems so, it's just like, I don't really care. And that's why I'm here and I'm listening in the background, because I'm learning so much more. And I really appreciate your patience with me. And I want to help as much as I can. I am also on the board for Community Legal Services, which is a legal services for, it's almost like social medicine. So wherever we can help, or if I can find resources, I would love to do that and share it with you. But I don't just want to give it, oh, here's the information, without taking in consideration the community, because that doesn't do any good. It's just me being, like they always say, the brown person on a white horse, They usually the white, whatever, but I don't want to be that person out here. Here's stuff that you can use to save yourself. I'm going to save you. I'm not here to save you. I'm here to share what I know. And so, but I am so, and I get emotional because I do. You guys are awesome. I'm so ashamed of what we have done to you and our islands. And as a federal employee, I can't say anything bad about, our administration, but in the background, I am cheering for you guys. And I'm here for you. Okay, enough about me.
Thank you, Lisa.
Again, everybody.
Thank you very much.
You.
Thanks for those very kind and important words. Thank you, Lisa. Anyone else who has not shared? I think people were called out. Let's see who else. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead, Joe. Oh, Joe, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Raatior and all the panelists. It's good to see my brothers and sisters and aunties and uncles, getting together here. My name is Joseph Pangilinan, and I'm from Chu. And I just want to echo what GC and Net had to say. And thanks for prodding us to, get on here and unmask ourselves to share in this island village conversation. And I'm for sure in favor of having an FSM task force. And we are kind of clannish, in the islands, and we're tribal in many ways. So I think that it's good to have an Indo-Pacific sort of like a conversation, like what maybe we're having. And then it's also good to have a conversation within FSM. And then even as breaking it down even smaller as to the community level, you know. And I was thinking in this conversation, what can I do? And I have a lot of relatives in the Spokane area and also in Oregon. And so I think part of my response, and in Hawaii, so I think part of my responsibility is to encourage my sister Yvonne to get on Facebook Live and assemble my relatives so that we can have a conversation, right? Yeah. I'm not the oldest, so I'm not sure if they're gonna listen to me, but you know, I can lean on that a little bit, because I have a few digits behind my name, and maybe I have the white beard on, so I might have a little bit of leverage in some ways. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And for those of you who don't know, that's Dr. Joseph Pangilinan from the University of, tell us, Washington and St. Louis, correct?
Yes, Washington University in St. Louis.
Right on.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. It's great to join us. I know that your sister has already connected us, and I think with the Consul General for a Portuguese engagement. So she might be volunteering us for some other things. But anyone else on the call that hasn't spoken, please share with us. Sarah, I see you. And
I guess I'll share. Thank you, Professor, and thank you everyone for sharing your thoughts and just like what your communities and your organizations are doing. I'm originally from the Ko'olauloa North Shores of Oahu, Hawaii. My parents are from the South Pacific Islands of Tonga. For the master's capstone in urban planning at Manoa, I had looked at people experiencing homelessness in Honolulu. And so my connection with COFA was, as you know, like there's a lot of our COFA folks that are experiencing homelessness in Honolulu. In addition to our other brothers and sisters, our Native Hawaiian local folks. And so I'm here now in Los Angeles and I'm at UCLA, and I'm thinking about looking at social service provision from the church perspective, because our communities are so tied and networked in with our various congregations and churches. And, you know, this is just, that's part of the reason why I'm here too, with us all figuring out like what we could do in regards to like this new normal with COVID-19. And I just think the work that you do right now, I really, like, I'm really inspired, and I'm grateful that we have this space to talk about how to do outreach, how to better communicate, how to control the narrative that we want for our communities and for our families. And I just really appreciate what you all are doing. I met Vid in one of the conferences with, I think it was one of the Native conference in LA.
LA, yeah.
Yep. So thank you so much for what you're doing. I think it's, from me, like just from my own family, we do a lot of Zooming with our church folks, and that's how we've kept connected. And that's hard when we come from communities that are often like not tied into Wi-Fi and internet and Zooming and are not really comfortable with that. But I think this is also a time to sort of figure that out. And I think we're savvy enough that we can get everybody on board as we figure out like what the new normal is. So thank you so much for what you're doing, and I really appreciate being able to listen to what you are doing in your communities from Washington State to Oregon, Arizona, my home in Hawaii, and also here in California. So thank you.
Yeah, Thank you, Sarah. Thank you very much for those kind words. You know, I see you over there, and you can't. You know, you're a performer on stage. This must be hurting that you're not. You know, come on.
I don't think she speaks Chuukese anymore.
You might need. I'm gonna unmute you. You know, there you go.
You know, I do translation and interpreting just in case.
Can you please?
He's more like he's too, so he understands.
Sid, you gotta mute that guy.
Yeah, lalo salam, renalam. To all of you, it's really an honor and pleasure to listen and hear everything that is going on. You know, I'm working out of home because I'm one of those that is still healing, and this COVID has kept me prisoner too long. Even before that, I'm already stuck in indoor, and this one is this situation just makes me even more feeling like I'm in jail. However, I like to keep tab of what's going on, and I do agree with my sister Josie. We really do need this task force to happen, especially from our different islands, because you know, I'm so proud to hear what Marshallese are doing, and at the same time we're like trying to figure out who to call and who's gonna do help us do the next step. And you know, it just reminded me of JoJo so badly, and it's crazy in this time, but we have each other now. There's so many of us now, and to see put faces with name with this new Zoom thing that I'm still trying to figure it out how to get on. It's really exciting to put names to faces and just knowing what you all are doing. I'm so proud of what we have come so far. And as you all know, with what's going on in Hawaii too, just as I with the work that I do with Kokoakali Valley Clinic, we were just talking about how we have to be very careful in our messaging and in how we put out words about our community, because in the end, it's gonna turn back up to us and hurt us even more. And with, you know, the news on the social media about comfort housing, having people infected with this virus, it's sad that, you know, they have to discuss the residence of people when we know there's so many number of people that were already, I mean, the media didn't even have to say where they live or what community they come from. But when it comes to us, they all of a sudden, you know, label us again. And it's just even harder to advocate for our people. So I really think that this task force effort to help limit those is really important, because regardless, the discrimination is gonna continue and it's gonna hurt so many people. And now they're even talking about how to target our children. It scares me to see all of these things on social media. And I don't know if you know about the 666. I was gonna call up Joe and let and ask him, is this a religious thing that the government is doing again? Can anybody explain to me what this 666 is regarding taking our children? Is that only in California, or is gonna trickle down to all the other islands too? So yeah, so many confusion in our community, and I'm one of them that is getting confused with what's going on. So anyway, I'm just rambling, but I really appreciate all of you and everything that you all are doing. So keep up the good work, and thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to talk.
Thank you, Sister. Appreciate that. Appreciate you mentioning the old JoJo. I know we dedicated last weekend to him this entire initiative. So, yep, yeah, we do miss him. Anyone else? I know it's 2:05 now, at least here. And I know it's happy hour already in Arkansas, so we don't want to get too far into that.
That's right.
All right, go ahead.
Just for the record, if Natalie is taking notes, for the record, I am fully for the task force. So I think we can move forward with that. So I just wanted to say that, and I just also want to say I'm very happy to see Dr. Joseph Pangilinan. I always wanted to be like you when I grow up. So I'm trying to.
He has more hair. He has more hair. Yeah,
I can't work on my hair. That's hopeless. But I'm working on the beard. Thank you.
I see him brushing his beard with white powder, man. He's just trying to grow up fast or be wiser. All right. Yeah, go ahead.
If you don't mind, I will probably just put together maybe kind of an organizing statement, if you will, put it on paper and then send it out to everyone. And then maybe also a, what do you call, I don't know these platforms. Doodle, is it called Doodle? Yeah, Doodle pool. Pool or pool? Is it a swim?
Pool.
Okay.
Depends if you have a bridge, then it's
we like swimming that way, but a doodle poll for everybody who wants to maybe start framing what this this task force will be like, and then maybe we can move from there. Somebody is saying no bridge jumping. So, all right. Thanks.
Yes. Okay. Good idea, Joe. Yep. Just let us, those of us who are committed to supporting that, let us know. Anything else? Anyone else? A couple last words, maybe.
Oh, okay, wait. I want to say something.
Go ahead.
Am I on?
Yes, you are.
Because I know we're planning to field structure, but at the same time, the need is right in front of us. So I am very aware of that. And like, my sister, is talking about the family at Camford or the people who are affected. Here in Hawaii, we are faced with that, and it is in our community. And so it pressure me more to be more reactive and do something about it. So I'm going back to the idea of the video, because I think there are things that we can do while we're fielding, right? There are things that, like the messaging to our community, that needs to go out ASAP because it's in our community. So one idea came to me. I know we talked about just, using, the big names and church leaders, but Simeon really inspired me and he really touched my heart. I think another group that we have not talked about is the youth. They're very powerful. They're our precious children. And they're also affected by this. So I think they need to be part of this video idea, and they need to create their own story. We usually listen to our kids. Our elders usually listen to the children. So yeah, that's it. Sorry, I became too emotional.
Vid, you're on mute.
Hey, Vid, gotta unmute.
Oh, my bad. I'm sorry. I was just gonna say, maybe Simeon, I think you might have just been volunteer to lead up some kind of youth effort, working on maybe with that task force that Joe's maybe putting together. Not putting you on the spot, but volunteering, it seems to be the operative word these days.
I can work with him on that.
Okay, perfect.
Just be a grandmother, but
great.
Involved with doing something.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else? I know there's still some folks that are kind of still in the background, and I want to honor that as well. If you'd rather not share, or just share your dog barking, whatever works. Go ahead.
Hi, Fit. Could I ask Aloha Josie from Big Island? Well, we haven't really got any numbers of like in our communities here in Big Island, but I was interested if you have any information about our Micronesian community that are affected by COVID in Oahu and in other islands in the Hawaii state. The question was to Josie Howard. If that's okay.
Okay, Jeremy, thank you for the question. I don't have a specific number because, it's hard to get our hands on that number here, but I can give you a number from my own Coconut Wireless stories. And this is from families and friends and community members who are affected. And I can say that it's more than 10. It may be going into the 20. And as the malls and the parks and the public areas are open here in Hawaii, our community is just coming down with this. So it's even more pressuring on my end because, graduation is coming up and I see our community really going all out for it. But there are people who are affected, and we can understand how small net is our community. We're all connected, and I guarantee that one of these more than 10 people is connected to me, is connected to all of you who are on this call right now. So that's my biggest concern.
Well, thank you. I say that because I think that is one of the powerful messaging is like knowing that, because what I'm hearing from my own community is like, we haven't heard anything from our Micronesian community, and as if like you're sealed to it. And so I think those kind of stories that we are related, we know people who are going through this, and the youth story, I think having kids talking about their stories on these messaging videos, that's very powerful. And then I really, think that that's a way to do this, because the only way that we can transmit information now is through this kind of stuff, technology. And we all have our own Facebook pages for different communities, from like, the bigger community down to the villages, sort of level communities. In our Yap community here, we have like the Remado, the Yapese, and the language issue too. And so we've set up different also the Facebook pages that people can go up to, because there's so many information coming out and not everybody's getting that too. Like everybody's kind of a little confused of what they should do and what they shouldn't be able to do. And in our community, not everybody also have access to this kind of technology too. Not everybody's getting the same news. Not everybody's able to get to have Wi-Fi or on internet. So that's one of the issues that we're dealing with as far as sending out messages to, but we could do what we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. Hey, Dina, you had shared a website this morning or late last night. Can you share a little bit of what that was? So is that, I didn't have a chance to
share
view
my
it.
screen, so I can just show you where
Oh,
it is
yeah. Sure, hold on. Go. Yep, you got it.
Thank you. So I posted this earlier in the chat. Sorry, I'm having a hard time seeing what you're seeing, but I'll just...
we can see it.
Oh, there we go. Okay. So on the hawaiidata.org website, they have this page on the demographic. And as last week when I needed, wow, it just updated. Okay. She said that the information comes out every Friday. So yesterday I checked it, and Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander, which of course they're not disaggregating the stats, went up significantly from the week before. The week before, I think it was both at 10%. So they say this population comprises about 10% of the state population. And last week it was around 10% of the cases. This week it's showing 15% of the cases. So this is, I mean, it really shows that the disparity is growing. And I'm not sure whether it could possibly keep growing, but that's where it's at. We'll have to keep checking on the Friday updates, but we also know that there's not much testing. I've been pulling the testing stats. On average this month and throughout the last 2 months, Hawaii has been testing less than 500 people a day, and this is statewide data. There are probably other pockets of testing going on at private, health care places, but it's kind of troubling because the testing is actually really low also. And then couple that with this story that was in the Hawaii News Now, got a lot of press coverage targeting Camp 4 housing and exposing that there was a case and possibly a cluster there of 7 cases.
And this is just for background, this is mostly this housing, low-income housing is predominantly COFA citizens, is that correct?
Mostly, I mean, I don't know the exact stats, but from our experiences, a lot of Micronesian, a lot of Samoan families. And this is troubling on a lot of levels. I think this is important information for us to have, but the fact that for the first 2 months first month when it was all cases of rich people who were traveling and all the cases were in Kailua and Kohala, are more expensive districts, nobody was targeting, here's the district that these cases came from. And then suddenly a case pops up here, and the Department of Health director starts exposing all this information that maybe is actually protected, by giving out the address, basically, if somebody is troubling in itself, but it's information that we also now have to deal with. And, was talking about this before, KKV Health Center, where she works with, is really trying to address this, but, it speaks to a lot of challenging issues that Hawaii, this is still, challenging. My guess is there's a lot more cases floating around than we know of.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is where the information is.
Okay.
And I just want to add on, we just started the testing last week, and all of a sudden, that this news came out because the director of housing volunteered to let them know. But the lady the actual manager that we work with, we actually advocate to her to help her understand. And she was like really telling us that, she didn't know any of that and is willing to work with us. And then the next day we got the news on social media that they announced it. And it's
that's terrible.
But the testing just started. So all this time there is no testing, and then just when we agreed to do the testing, especially because of the things that we see, people are not really paying attention with all this, not just because they don't understand, but there's so many information on social media that they don't understand, and they don't know which one to believe anymore. In fact, I have one minister who said, which is the trusted institution to get this information? We need somebody to really tell us, like, what is really going on, like what is true and what is not true. Wow. And for them to hear from our director, to hear directly from Dr. Giraffe was very touching, because they didn't know what was going on. And these are ministers in our community that are actively doing online services too, and they would like to participate. And just as we were moving forward to figure out our next step and did that testing that last week, and then I was worried, did it come out from our group? But it wasn't. I did some research and found out that the leak was from the director itself.
Wow. The director leaked the information out, basically, to the media.
That's exactly what he did with the Big Island issue, with the Marshallese community on the Big Island. Media reporters kind of pressed him and then he just came and exposes, oh, it's the Marshallese community, oh, it's this public, you know, and it's like, without
Oh my
any
gosh.
without any proper public health messaging that's more positive, he kind of freaks out and
Is this Bruce Anderson?
yes, yes.
Oh, terrible.
And so this is, I mean, the flip side to the messaging within the community is how we press them to not continue to target and stigmatize community externally. It's something I've been thinking a lot about, but
why don't we issue a statement from COFA communities across the U.S. And get allies to sign on to the statement and send it to Hawaii State, the governor's office, and say, you know, we issue this as COFA community leaders that we disapprove of and ask that this discontinue. I mean, I think we have to leverage that, and that's one of the things that I was emailing also with our department, is that our government will also issue a diplomatic statement to say that, you know, for the sake of our communities, we ask that local government entities do not single out our communities.
That would be great. I mean, and not just coming from us advocates, but, you know, coming from the governments. And I know that I believe that there was a letter that came out of the Marshallese community on Big Island directed to the Department of Health. So we probably can piggyback on that to make sure that we're all, you know, everybody's basically saying the same thing, because that's unprofessional.
Here's an opportunity for volunteering also, Dina. Please.
Proposing some kind of maybe some kind of resolution that could be signed on by others. Thank you for volunteering, Sister Dina, or as we call Princess Leia, otherwise known as General Leia. Is there? I know that there isn't a CG right now for FSM in Hawaii, correct? There is a Consul General for Marshals. And is Senator still the sort of Palauan CG? And no, is there a CG now in Honolulu?
Yes, there's a new. Yes, there's a new one.
Yeah, so maybe I don't know what's the proper channel to work this through. You know, other than maybe have at least a document that can then be circulated among the other Consul Generals. You know, I know. Consul General Alik is still here with us. But yeah, that would be, I think that's a great way to just come to the aid of our community. But I don't know, let's respectfully check with leaders in Hawaii. Will that make it worse for the community, or will that, because this is easy for us kind of looking on the outside and say, we'll do this, but what do you think, how will that impact you and the community, the COFA communities there, if we come out with a statement and co-sign it as different organizations and entities?
I think it would depend on the letter itself, the tone and how it's presented. So that's the key.
I agree.
Okay.
I think it is important for something to be said, and absolutely, I agree with Brother Akapito on how the message is framed, because I think that this just perpetuates a lot of the historical racism and discrimination that has happened, long term, that has happened in Hawaii, but also that we may be seeing now in the continental U.S. So yes, absolutely, I think that. What you were saying, Fit, is important for those that in Hawaii maybe to speak up and say, what do you need? But my instinct is that we need to say something, because that's one of the steps in which that we can dismantle some of these, structures of, racism that has occurred. That it's always very convenient, when things don't go well, to point the fingers at the different people who are newer, who are the newcomers, whether it's to Hawaii or to any of the states here in the continental U.S. And again, it falls disproportionately on those of us, as well as, you know, the working families and those that are poor and maybe who come here for medical purposes. You know, it's a sort of like almost a reflex, you know, in that sense, right? It's redirect the blame, you know, to our people, and that's just that doesn't seem right.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. Go ahead.
Could I add to that? Thank you, Joe. I think that will be super important, that there will be a kind of a statement coming out of our community here, and maybe supported by our government leaders. And it's also because this is not just about the COVID. This is more of under the discrimination thing that it's been going on in Hawaii, where everything goes wrong and you target a certain group. And I think that's what's happening here. Even though that guy may not like think about what he said, but it just like comes out as if it's okay. It's not okay. So if we see it, it's not okay. I agree that we should say something about it, because they're not going around saying, oh, the Filipino community or the Hawaiian community or that community. They just, again, back to this whole thing, the Micronesian, the other, they're not here from here. So I think that is an important that a statement comes out, and MUBI will talk to our MUBI leaders to support it. And we are totally for it. Thank you.
So another thing that I think, I'm just thinking out loud here, is it might make more sense for me to also lead up with like the Japanese American Citizens League, for example, in Hawaii, that we could write sort of the ally statement that that we've done this before. Unfortunately, we've had to do this over and over again.
Yeah, absolutely.
To basically just say, we are calling this out. And especially from the Japanese American Citizens League, we have that connector of internment and history of targeting, that we can speak from that perspective and link that in. I think
that's amazing.
The more statements we can make, the better. And a lot of Japanese Americans in Hawaii have a lot more leverage and power that we could tap into that. I can definitely talk to those folks about doing sort of an ally statement.
Thank you, Dina. That's
I really think it's also, I thank you, Dina. I think that's important that those information comes out too. Sorry, I just lost my train of thought, but what I meant to say was, you know what? I lost it. Sorry. Hold on.
That's all right. It'll come back to you. Anyone else?
Can I just add to everyone's conversation?
Go ahead, Josie.
So this goes back to why I was suggesting the organizing of an FSM COVID-19 group. And because I saw what the Marshallese community was doing and how they came together, and because of their because they were organized and they had the key people on board, they were able to advocate for that community that was targeted in Kona, or on the Big Island. And so I thought about, you know, it brought me to understand, you know, the political structures, and also even within our community. And as you know, the director for WOW, it's my role is broader. It's the whole Micronesian and anybody else that we can help. I really saw that it was needed to create this pipelines and to create these channels, so that when things like this happen, we can quickly organize ourselves. And like Joe had already have that idea, I think that's a great idea. We get all these tools set up, because this is gonna come. Yesterday, the day before, I got contacted by the local media here, you know, the news, KITV4 and the radio stations. I didn't want to answer anything, because I like the same thing. I want to protect, but these are the things that we have to be ready for. We have to set up the channel of, if the media is calling, whom should they talk to? Because I don't think it's my place to talk, you know, on behalf of the Micronesian people. My role is it's specific to, you know, social servicing. I will provide the help. I will provide the services, but you know, in terms of things like that, I think we really need to build that structure, and we need to organize it and have it in place. Sorry.
Well, I also think that's important, is having that, but it's also we need that right away, because if they don't
Yeah.
get it from us, they're
Yeah.
going to go somewhere else, and eventually it's going to come from somebody that doesn't have the right message.
Yep.
So, you know, we need to be quick on this.
Yep.
In other words, General
Like-
Dina, like yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
No, that's a great idea. That's great.
Can I ask at least the CGs, the Consul Generals that are still here with us, for something like that, is there protocol in order to also safeguard the integrity of the diplomatic places of your offices? And I mean, I imagine you'll advise us on that, so that, you know, we're not stepping on some other areas of our connection with the government or with those departments that could adversely affect their work, your work.
Thank you, Vid. I don't know if I'll ask Eldon also to to speak to this, but just quickly for me, Vid, you touch on something that I go to bed with, I wake up in the morning with. It is an internal struggle for me, because my heart is, I'm an advocate, and I am an organizer. That is my heart, in my heart of hearts. My role is to play the fine line of being a diplomat as well. And oftentimes it's just been it's a judgment call. It's, you know, a lot. We do kind of, in some matters, we will talk with our embassy, but I do think that our government has recognized the work that we do. And that's why I'm a little bit okay, because they have, they've shown that support in like resolutions and things like that in terms of the organizing work. So, and with the COVID-19, some of that is kind of lifted a little bit. They're like, okay, you know, however you want to, but I do think it's good to get your support as well. I mean, I don't think that we'll have all the answers, but we do check in with our superiors, and mostly I check with embassy, sometimes with our main department. But the general role, though, that they've given us is that you look out for the interest of FSM. That's kind of the general statement. And I think a lot of the work that we're doing is in line with that that role. But yes, I think we try to be a little, you know, not too attacking, if you will. To not burn those bridges, especially right now when we're coming up to against 2023. We have to be mindful of that as well. But from what we're talking about and things we can be doing, I don't think that will that necessarily will cross any you know lines or anything like that. Eldon, you want to share anything?
Yeah, thank you, Joe. I'm sorry I stepped out a little bit, so I really didn't hear the first part of what we're talking about. And I'm thinking we're talking about how do we deal with the media, right? If they
the Consul General, we're basically talking about the idea of coming out with a statement that could be shared, co-signed by both the government entities of the COFA nations, as well as the various organizations that advocate for our citizens against this I guess, breach of confidentiality, and calling out our citizens in the housing in Hawaii, in terms of numbers. That's kind of, I think that's what we were talking about. And so I just asked the question of whether this might, you know, adversely affect your role as representatives of our various governments, COFA nations, and how do we play that role of being advocates and yet not also burn the bridges of our governments to do, because it basically would be calling out the director of, who was it? Director of Housing, somebody?
Yeah, Director of
And the
Housing,
media maybe.
and Director of Health.
Health Director, yeah, in Hawaii.
Yeah.
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 So this is regarding an article that was in the newspaper, correct?
Correct. Yep. In which the housing that many of our citizens live was specifically targeted as COVID, as an area that is of interest. Whereas other data that had not been directed at a specific address or location, they're targeting that low-income housing.
Yeah, a similar situation, as you all probably know, happened in Kona, with the Marshallese community there, when that mayor there of Kona, of that town, singled out the Marshallese. What they did was they wrote up a letter, the president of the Marshallese community in that area, and our Consul General in Hawaii, she put her name down on there as another signature. She signed on that. And then they called for a meeting with the government, with the mayor. So he turned out, he ended up saying another statement on the news, kind of saying that he apologized for what he said. So as far as I agree with what Joe was saying. No, we play a very fine line with all these government offices. But at the same time, I've always consulted my ambassador in Washington, D.C. To see what I should do. But he's also given me a little rein to use my own judgment. And, something that affects our community, I think it's important that I stand up. If something is, they say something bad about our people, that I think it's not right, it's important that I join in, but I want to make sure that it's just not me. I want to make sure that my whole community is involved. I want to get, like for Dr. Sheldon Rickland, put his name on there. I consult with them. I consult with the pastors in our community, other community leaders of the organizations here. And we all get together and we all write something. For example, we all got together and wrote letters to our congressional here regarding Medicaid for our citizens, regarding Medicaid for from the state of Arkansas. We wrote a letter to the governor. So I think it just you have to use your own judgment. And like Joe said, we have to be real careful because we have to be diplomatic at the same time. But I think if it's something that's really, it's really obvious that they're pointing it to our people, I think we can't go wrong if we stand up and say, hey, this is not right. So it just depends on each office.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think it sounds like maybe this is an urgent project for us to take on as various groups. So maybe the composing of that letter that we can all go sign. So maybe in the document that we send out for the minutes of this meeting, maybe then we can just use, if Dina or others can compose that that letter, and people can kind of.
That the Big Island community wrote, is it available somewhere?
Yeah.
Or maybe we can talk to Wilfred and Jeremy and
the Consul General.
It will be, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Consul General. Yeah.
Okay.
If I can also try to get it.
Great,
okay.
Thank you.
That would be great.
Peter, I was going to ask, sorry. So we're talking about one letter. I mean, I could be off track here, or I was thinking maybe, there's one from the advocates, from ourselves, another one, if need be, from government representatives, and then another one from friends of the advocates, like and like Tina mentioned, so it could be possibly, you know, more than one letter. I'm just thinking out loud. And again, really the key is the tone of the letter. If we do a really good job with the tone of the letter, we shouldn't be worried about anything. I know we have consul generals here, so they know, or consuls general, wrong English. They know about the definition of diplomacy. I'm sure I heard a long time ago. You know, diplomacy, the art of diplomacy, it's the ability to tell someone to go to hell in such a way that they're actually looking forward to going to hell. So anyway, if we're able to do that, you know, that might work. But you know,
I think Brother Acapito got to be one of the writers of this letter with Dina.
Yeah, he just volunteered himself.
Write the consulate letter too.
Oh man!
Yeah. Thank you for that volunteer.
Thank you. Very, very good, John. You haven't lost your touch and sense of humor. Those of you who don't know John, he's the ultimate clown of advocacy work, but very highly respected national university. So, I'd like to suggest that we go ahead and close out this thing. Just a reminder now, I think, on this particular project, Consul General Alik will at least figure out if he has a copy of that letter, and maybe Dina can also contact Will and see if he has a copy of that letter, and just, if he can compose a letter, and we'll send it out with maybe with the minutes from today's meeting that Natalie has been diligently writing. And we'll go from there with the sense of urgency that I think it needs, because somebody indicated that perhaps sooner rather than later, before somebody else speaks on our behalf and change the narrative that we want to advocate for. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Folks, I know I'm starving because I haven't had lunch. It's been 2 hours, almost 3 hours now. And I know it's way past some people's back in Central, their happy hour times.
Yes,
I'm pretty sure it's not healthy to eat a whole bunch. But I did.
Thank you all very much. I think we'll go ahead and close this out. Natalie, is there any clarification from your side in terms of the notes and all?
There are several, but maybe I can get in touch with you later today after we both eat and both our brains have a chance to decompress a little bit.
Great.
I'm hungry too.
Okay, great. And I haven't forgotten, I know, and we'll make sure that the notes reflect Minister Jack's concern about having some of the medical members of our community to share some thoughts with his community on the medical side of it. You know, of course, at this point, there are many doctors sitting in this thing, but only 2 medical doctors, and they're both Marshallese. And so we will count on Dr. Rickland, MD, and
I speak broken Korean.
Yeah, and exactly. So
well, you can speak English. We'll just call you to speak English.
All right. Anything else? Otherwise, we're going to say goodbye, and let's just figure out if there needs to be another conversation, especially about that letter. You can always count on the Zoom that I know others have access to Zoom as well, but you can also count on my setting that up for us if we need to meet again about that letter. And maybe we need to, yeah? Maybe once the letter's composed, you know, for those who can, we'll send it out and just kind of talk through it. Because I imagine there might be some ideas that we need to just
We
make
can
sure
do a Google
it's
Doc.
reflected. Is that all right?
Yeah, Google Doc.
Google Doc, yeah, that's a good idea.
Oh, all of you are frozen.
Frozen.
Oh, okay, there you go. Was that just
Dr. Vitt? Dr. Vitt?
Yes, sir.
I want to pick up before we leave with the sense of urgency about my concern about the funeral and the get together, which is happening on this next month for the Micronesian in Texas. The sense of urgency which Brother Joseph Pangolin brought up, that he was going to talk to his family members. So I learned just by listening to that now, because of all this thing needs to be set up, I can use what the concept he was using to tell every 8 of the families that I know that are in my Facebook that are Kosharians, or the ringleaders of baseball teams and groups that are there is. So I can tell them, so we can hit the pockets of all these things. If we're late with the delegates that they don't listen to, the family member that they look up in our community will help with the advocacy of what we're doing. I think for the meantime, that can help while we're writing, while we're scripting, and trying to do all these telecasts. And so I just want to bring that to your attention at this point. I want to thank you, Brother Joseph. That's why I've been listening, getting all this important information from you guys. I've been taking notes because I'm doing a delegates tonight, and also on Sunday. I do this every week so that we can reach our community. Because I put it this way, if even Adam doesn't listen to God, how can they listen to DJ or Driscoll Jack on this? So I'm trying to do the best I can. And that's why I want to invite you guys, doctors, to help me out too. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I think with that, shall we end it with a prayer, and we'll go from there?
Okay, so you want me to pray to close it?
Yes, that would be great.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Let us pray. Father God, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God that sent the missionaries out to the world. Thank you, Lord, for raising up this group of panelists. We believe in you, and we thank you for loving us first. We pray to you, knowing that you will help us with every discussion, every strategy, so we can reach the heart of our very core of our people. We pray to you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, the strength, give us the strength that we know that we are raised for times just as this. In Jesus' name we say amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen.
All right. Shaka, everybody. Thank you.
Okay. Lomalap.
All right.
So.
Oh, here.